Roy Thomas was excited to be working with Lucasfilm and Marvel on the upcoming comic for Star Wars. Work had already started up to bring the movie from the screen to the pages, and Roy and others had just saw a private screening of a rough cut of Star Wars. He loved the movie and the people there to show the film, but leaving the screening, Roy would say that was the last time Star Wars was a pleasant experience for him. Leaving that screening, no one knew what Star Wars would become. But even if they felt it might be a good film and a hit film, no one could have seen what was to come. That the release would change everything, from movies, from marketing, to toys, to even the Star Wars comics. Once Star Wars was released, it was clear this was more than just some movie. Lucasfilm was ready to keep Star Wars comics going beyond the film. Roy thought it would be excellent to continue the adventures, but very soon after the release of the film, he found out that his hands were tied very tightly on what he could and couldn't do next with Star Wars. Due to the success of the film, it was without a doubt Star Wars would get a sequel. So that meant he had to put a hold on the characters and the story for sure. He was told he would not be allowed to use Darth Vader at all, and he was in no way advance the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, or Han Solo and Princess Leia. There was more that he couldn't do, and little that he could do. Roy told Starlog magazine in 1987 that he felt he wasn't allowed to do anything but run in place. Roy wanted and needed his freedom, so he looked at what he could do. Being that his favorite character was Han Solo, he met with George Lucas with a Han Solo story. He wanted to do Magnificent Seven type storyline after the run of the movie comics. Lucas loved that plan and told Roy to start work right away. The series would be 4 issues, number 7 through 10. He wrote the story and had Howard Chuckland do the layout. He then got a call from Lucas's film, Charlie Lippincott. Lucas had got the issues, and he wasn't happy with it. Roy reminded Charlie that Lucas had already approved the story. How could he not like him? It seems that Lucas felt the story was too much like Magnificent Seven, and there was one character Lucas didn't like. In fact, he downright hated, and he felt it wasn't right for Star Wars. That was a 7-foot-tall green rabbit named Jack. Lucas felt it looked like something that belonged in a Bugs Bunny cartoon and not in Star Wars. Roy would say that he was inspired to do the character by a Porky Pig-like alien he saw in the cantina scene. He figured the green rabbit wasn't much wilder than that, and really not more wilder than a Wookiee. But it was clear Lucas didn't think the same. It was then Roy said he knew he loved the movie, but really had no interest in continuing Star Wars. He was an artist that needed freedom and his own playground, but Lucas was the owner of the sandbox and would have a say what would happen in it. He understood what Lucas was doing, but it wasn't something that he could be a part of. But it wasn't just a tight grip of Lucas that was putting Roy off Star Wars. He had found out that Alan Dean Foster, who had ghost-written the Star Wars novel, received a very sizable bonus after the release of the film. The cast of the film was given extra profit points as a thank you for the success of the film. So he wanted and felt he deserved extra. So he waited and waited. All he got was his normal comic book rate for Marvel, plus $2 per page for each time the first 6 issues got reprinted. Roy decided to speak up, cause it seems waiting just wasn't going to get him anything. And finally he got a bonus, but it was not from Lucasfilm, but from Marvel, a check for $500. He really didn't feel like he was being appreciated, and really not by Lucasfilm. After all, the first 2 issues came out, sold great, and was released to promote the film. Everyone else got a big thank you, but he wasn't getting anything but rules. Now Roy said he wasn't really upset with Marvel, as those Star Wars comics and its reprint will become the highest selling comic book at the time. He even told Starlog magazine that he really had no beef with George Lucas. He knew with all that was going on with the success of Star Wars, the comic book that helped promote it was probably the last thing on George Lucas's mind. All he ever hoped for was a little extra for the help, but he never got anything but grief from George Lucas. So Roy called back Charles Lippincott and let him know after the Solo story he was out, and to let George Lucas know that it was fun being part of Star Wars. He would be replaced with Marvel legend Archie Goodwin as writer, and Roy would say that Archie had a lot more fun working within the limits of Lucasfilm and gave it a lot more of his love. Archie loved writing Star Wars. He would even go on to write the Star Wars newspaper strip. Roy went back to work on Conan the Barbarian. Sure, it wasn't his character, but its creator, Robert E. Howard, had died 4 years before Roy was even born. That gave him almost as much freedom as writing his own character. When asked by Starlog if he had to do it all over again, Roy said without a question he would do it all again, the same way, and then he gave a smile and said, mostly the same. What would he have done differently? Roy said that he would ask Lucas for a bonus the day after Star Wars opened. Well, that's a look at how Star Wars went from film to comics. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you hadn't, please check out part 1. And you also might be interested in the video I did a few years ago about the final days of the Star Wars Marvel comics.
Junkman.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.